back, everyone. This is B, and it's about 31 degrees outside right now. So I need to get a fire going. It's pretty mild weather though for January, so I'm kind of happy about that. We haven't had to plow a lot of snow. We just had about a week of really intense. We got probably, I'd say 2 feet, but some of the drifts, I mean, I seen a 15-foot drift. So let me get this fire going and then we'll get started. Get some of this old ashes out of here before we load it up again. Been kind of a crazy week for me. Seems like people always try to make your life more difficult than it has to be. That's why I don't mind being by myself. I actually enjoy it. So let me get some good old paper here. And load it up. More. Hope you guys didn't have too bad of a week. I had more stress from people than anything. And throw some of this pine, just kiln dried lumber in there. That always helps get it going right away. You keep it around for fire starter. And then an 80-90 jug, I always keep a little bit of diesel in there, and it's all used diesel. I used it to clean something with it, so makes a good fire starter after you're done with it. And it looks like I'm getting low on firewood, so I'll probably have to go out and gather some more at some point today. I know next week they're talking more snow, at least 4 days of it. So definitely want to get this stocked up before then. I just love this thing to the brim. Right. All right, we'll give that a little bit of time to burn and be right back. All right, I want to discuss these two carports. This one here, I bought at Menards, and when I bought it, it didn't have the front or the back on it. It just had, and if you can tell, actually, if you look at the bottom here, it's a little slightly different color than the rest of it. And that's because at the time, I just bought enough to go down to that far, and then it was still exposed at the bottom. So this year, I went ahead and I finished it, and I put that bottom piece on all the way down to the ground. I added that peak and I put that back wall in, but I didn't do it with the kit that you can buy. And so what I ended up doing is I had these metal studs, and I wanted to make sure the whole thing was metal and I didn't have any wood. So I put these studs in, and they are 2 feet on center. And since This faces north, and in the wintertime we get some pretty crazy winds out of the north. I added this louver, and believe it or not, it works. So as air comes in here, that opens up and allows it to go out instead of pick this whole building up. Now, I do have them anchored down here. These are 2 foot long. I believe they're 5/8 of an inch or 3/4 stakes. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 5 of them per side, and they go through this asphalt. So it holds in there very well. The other things I've done to it, and actually if you look up here, I did the same thing with those metal studs, and it's very strong. I've never had trouble with snow load on top of this thing. It actually, for those being 4 feet apart, I have never had this metal bow in at all. It holds up very well. I went to Harbor Freight and I picked up some of these hooks here, and so I figured it'd be a good place to store my 32-foot extension ladder. A couple other things I did is I added some lighting. These 2 lights here are solar lights, and we can go around the side here and I'll show you the solar panel and where I mounted it. It's up here on top, and so that basically gives us a little bit of light when we come out in the morning to go to work. And the one thing that I didn't like is when I bought this from Menards, if you look at this, there's a seam. It came with, instead of, because it's a 20 foot by 20 foot carport, it came with, I believe, 10 foot sheets. And so overlapping a little bit, I guess it makes it a little under 20 foot that way. And then the ones that I actually bought, they have no seam in them. I bought exactly 20 foot. And same thing along the back here. Those are the 20 footers that I bought. And they actually fit in there perfect, because it is exactly 20 foot from here to there. So if I was to do it over again, I would not get 10 foot sheets. I would just go with all 20s. I'd buy the frame, and then I would go somewhere else and buy the sheet metal if I couldn't get it at Menards, or if you could get a better deal on it. So that's, I think, going to cover this one here. I've been very happy with it. I've had no issues at all. These are actually very strong. I believe they're 2x3, and I believe, I want to say 14 gauge, and they hold up very well. I was concerned because there's no gussets or anything like that in here. It's just, they just meet and butt together like that. So, but never had an issue. Now, I want to talk about this one. This here was a Shelter Logic, and it had that canvas cover. I guess it's not canvas, it's more like a tarp material on it. And I was very concerned about these poles, because these are, I believe, 1 3/8 or 1 5/8, one of those two. And you can see just how thin they are. But they are hardened, I think, because they actually held this very well. They're about 4 feet apart like the other one, so I wasn't concerned about the metal caving in at all. And they are screwed directly to those poles. The one problem I had when I put metal on this was that this whole thing, when the wind blew, I had a really bad storm come through here, and we must have had 50 to 70 mile an hour winds, and this whole thing was just, I thought it was a goner. I thought it was going to fold over on itself, and I can't believe it didn't. So in order to remedy that, and again, these are, because this one's a little bit longer than that other one, I believe I got these sheets as 21 footers. And so, but anyway, what I did to remedy that flex in it, I guess, is I built this grid. I had some more of those metal studs, and that grid made it so it won't move at all now. It is solid as can be. I mean, you're not moving it. Not at all. And so my plan is to go ahead and we're going to enclose the back too. And I'm probably going to have to find another louver to go on there. Because I don't want it to blow away or pick up or anything like that. But if you're going to do this, instead of buying that tarp, the problem I had was I couldn't find the tarp that goes on this one. This one is the 9'6" or 10-foot tall one, and they quit making tarps for it for some reason. So that's what got me thinking about how I was going to get around that, and it was expensive. I mean, I think I had $1,000 into the metal here, but the nice thing was with this model, I did not have to cut them off at the bottom at all. They were actually perfect. So I just centered the top one and went right on around, and by the time I got to the bottom, it was perfect where it was. But if you're going to do this, the hard part is screwing through this and hitting that, because you've got, what do you have here, a 3-foot span from here to there. That's where your seams are. And so what I would do is, we got a seam here, and obviously I had a screw there. So I'd slide it under here, and I would put a straight edge from here down past the next seam, which is right here, and line it up with that. And then I would take my marker and put a dot along that straight edge all the way up. And that gave me that let me know that behind my mark was going to be that pole. And so it was kind of time consuming. I had to do that on every single one of them, but they all lined up perfectly. And of course you can see I ran out of white screws, and that's all I could get, so I'm not too worried about it. It doesn't bother me. But yeah, I actually highly recommend putting metal on a Shelter Logic frame, because I've had probably 18 inches of snow on the top of this thing, and it held it just great. Now, I don't know about the ones that have a peak. This is obviously an arch, and we all know that arches are stronger. So this is going to only apply to this arch style. So I want to come over here and just talk about this for another second here. So one thing I did when I built this wall is the bottom piece here, I coated it with truck bed liner, because I knew it was going to be on the ground and it's going to hold moisture under there. So rather than let it rot away, I wanted to make sure that it had a coating on it to help protect it for a while. And the other thing was, you know, we got some pretty strong winds, like I was saying, and that worked really well. But I noticed that at the bottom, it was bowed in really bad. So what I did was I drilled a hole into this asphalt, and I ran some lag screws down inside this. And that holds it from moving at all. So you can see kind of where it bent before, when that when the whole wall got kicked in, that's how it bent. But with those lag screws running down through it, it doesn't go anywhere. And I think I've got 4 of them along this whole wall. So I did want to point that out. If you're going to build a wall in the back of your carport out of these metal studs, it's a good idea to anchor it in the back, because they're not that strong. They're not like wood. And these long sheets are pretty flexible too. So definitely anchor it down. Now I want to get into the cost a little bit here. This one here, I paid $1,700 for it, and that was original, without a front, a back, or those bottom pieces. And then I added those bottom pieces, and the back, which the sheet metal ran me about $400 for that. The metal studs were free, and that louver was free. So we're looking at $2,100 for this, and that was all pre pandemic cost. So now this one over here, I paid $350 for it at Menards when it had the tarp covering on it. And obviously after about 3 years, that went bad. It didn't rip, but it had some pinholes in it. And I said, well, it's time to do it now, or this winter it's probably gonna rip out on me. And it may have held up, I don't know. So we had $350, and the metal to go around it was actually, I think I said $1,000. I wanna say it was like $750 to go around this. And so we're gonna have a little bit more in the back. But I mean, you're probably looking, after we get done enclosing that back, and I'll probably put something at the peak on the front of it just to make it look better and kind of match what's there. You're probably going to be looking at somewhere around $1,300, $1,400, which isn't too bad. This is 12 foot wide and 9.5 feet tall and 21 feet long. So I think it's well worth the money. The only other thing I wanted to talk about is I didn't talk about how these are anchored down. I think what these have here are those hurricane style anchors where they screw down into the ground and then they use that cable to attach to it. And believe it or not, those hold up very well. And there's only 4 of them, 1 on every corner. So it's just what it came with, and I've had no trouble out of those. The way I do these metal studs is these are self-tapping screws, and that's how I secure them together. A lot of people, they'll use rivets. You can do that, but these self-tappers work very well. Before I put this here, I went to the local asphalt company. They're about 20 minutes away, and I dug this all out, and I had them bring in, this is 110 tons of asphalt grindings, because all that was here before was grass. So this has helped tremendously. Since I have a forklift, I can drive on top of it and not worry about getting stuck, and I don't have to worry about weeds, mowing it. It's worked out really well. So anyways, I hope what I've told you has kind of helped you out, and maybe it's given you some ideas about how you can enclose your carport. And I hope you guys have a good day, and we'll see you on the next video.